community is when you have a group of people and people stop saying, what can you do for me? And more about how can I contribute to this?
Can we go higher? Can we go higher?
Hey everybody, I am so excited for this episode today. Like, we're just coming out of the holidays. We were on sort of a winding down, relaxing kind of a thing. And
we took a month off.
We took a month off for sure. But this is, I think today, like just the last couple of days is the first time this year that we're starting to feel like that surge of energy coming back. Like, we've been doing a lot of work. We've been sort of looking for clarity and looking for direction and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And things are finally starting to click, which just makes you excited. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I mean, well, let me rephrase it. I am fired up for 2026. So fired up. And so I am so excited because I have my bestie, round table, everything you can call him, Earl, joining us today. Woohoo!
Hey, Earl, welcome.
Thank you. And it's such a pleasure to be here. And it's so great because I know it was only last month that I saw you in real life. So,
yes.
you know.
I know. What's cool is that we actually saw Earl twice in 2025. We had no plans of going to the UK, and then we ended up there in 2025, and we got to see Earl there. And then he had no plans either of coming to the DR. It was a reroute. And then we got to see him last month. So how crazy is that?
Which is worth talking about just for a moment, because we've spent a lot of time talking about like the heaviness of 2025. You know, it was a year of big changes and big pivots and all of that. And we talk a lot about how we rallied and how we sort of recreated our business and all of that. But there were massive moments of just sheer joy in that as well. You know, one, helping all the people that we were able to help, but then we actually getting to meet Earl and getting down there and, you know, getting to have a beer and talk about all the amazing things that are happening. You know, it's one of those things that just, it refills you. You know what I mean? So yeah. We can't forget that. You know?
And seeing him last month is exactly what I needed.
Exactly.
Which is
just what I needed.
So I know Earl is exactly what you need today too. He's going to give you just what you need. Okay, go ahead.
So we've asked Earl to be on the show with us today for multiple reasons. One, because he's the coolest guy around. He's got a tremendous amount of experience. But the question that we've gotten from our audience has been about how you build community. Like, we talk to so many people and they're just looking for genuine connection and authenticity in the way that they relate to other people, you know, and it's really hard to build. And we know, I mean, for us, the person that comes to mind when it comes to building community is Earl.
The master.
So.
Earl, you're the master at that. And I would say it's not even just our community. I'm going to give a personal plug here. Our daughter asked us too. How do I make friends? And I think like friends that share my interests, right? Because this is the thing. Like, you can be in a place and your people may not be around you. So Earl, I'm going to pass it to you to answer the question for the audience.
Maybe introduce himself and
that small part. So yeah, thank you, and maybe the introduction first. So my previous life in what I call the corporate matrix was as a sales professional in technology companies. So I used to work with multinational companies, global companies, and provide technology solutions for those organizations. And that was very rewarding financially, but so unfulfilling in other ways. And so I went on a journey, and it was an external journey of traveling around the world to see what else life could provide and what else was happening in the world rather than my small island in the UK. But it also began a journey of what I now call soulpreneurship. So that's the inward journey of aligning your purpose, your meaning with your aspirations and having a positive impact on community, family, humanity, you know, which are all aspects of community, which is why I vibe with you guys so much, because you guys do that on an international level, and you do it for the not-for-profits, you do it for people that really need it. So, you know, our values are so aligned, and this is why I'm part of the round table. This is why you're part of my round table, and why we vibe so well. So that's really important in terms of understanding the framework or how we access community, what it means for us, and how we then go about structuring it and building it, because you have to be intentional when you're doing that. That's really important. So that's a kind of a segue into it. And I think the first thing, and I'm going to ask you a question first, and then we'll kind of go back and forth, which is, how do you define community? And not just the kind of dictionary definition, and what one phrase or sentence can bring that word to life, because quite often we have a noun that kind of has something, but what does that look like in reality if you bring it to life as a verb?
I'm going to put, Paul, I'm handing that to you because you're the word nerd. Like he knows the origin of all words. So this is going to Paul.
So community means to come together as one, right? That's what community means. And so, and for me,
I told you he's the master at that.
So for me, Earl already sort of hinted at it. And for me, so the question is, what is the oneness that has you around which you come together, right? And for us, for me anyway, that oneness is values.
Yeah, you know,
right?
Same.
It's that alignment. It's not even necessarily in terms of education or even culture or anything like that. It's people who see the world in a similar way, see their place in the world in a similar way. And for us, it's very clear, right? We're all about the people who are heart-led, who are out here to make the world a better place, and those are the values that align with us. So
right, and it's a mix of like heart-led with the trailblazer, with the ambition, but it's ambition to make the world a better place, right? And I think that is key. And though that's our community, even as the listeners here who are listening, right? They wouldn't be listening to this podcast if they didn't feel that as well. And I think that's why we start with all of our coaching programs. We start with, and even if you're individual, if you're a team, or you're a social entrepreneurship, or you're an entrepreneur, the first exercise we do is the values. You got to know your values, right? 8 out of 10 people don't know them. And if you, I think that goes back to what you were saying, Earl, if you need to know what you value to be able to build that community, because you talked about intentionality. And intentionality, if you want to go search for your people, you need to know, who are your people? Who are you searching for? Because then that's how you find them. Earl, I want to put a plug on how we met. Do you want to tell the story, or should I? I think you should.
Well, the story goes, and it is appropriate I ask the question, that that myself and Esther have a mutual friend called Anya, and Anya, amazing person.
She's amazing. She has a cool podcast too.
She has a very cool podcast, Right Off Track. And Dr. Esther Zaledon was actually interviewed on that. And I was listening to the interview, and I was so struck profoundly about that heart-led and shared perspective on the world and how we can be our best self. So actually, at the time, the interview was around this book. So, it was really about creating your limitless life. And I got the book, and it was just like, wow, like this person really speaks to my values. And so I reached out to Esther, and we had communication, and from there we were kind of like twinning, there were so many similarities and so on and so forth. And then, Esther introduced me to Paul, and it was kind of like, wow, another amazing guy. We're both bald, and we both got, a bit of grey and, so on and so forth. Yeah. So there was so much alignment in what it was. So yeah, that was our intro. But
wait, I need to pause
it felt like
here.
It's destined.
I want people to hear that again, though, right? You heard a podcast that I was on. You resonated. You took the initiative to reach out. Like, I'm so
Yes.
thankful you reached out. I tell Paul that all the time. I'm like, I'm so happy Earl found me, but that meant that I also had to get out there too, right? So I want to spend some time on that because I had to be willing to go on podcasts and share my message.
Yes.
And to also, it's a way of building community because I wanted to meet people who were aligned, and that's how I met Anya, and that's how I met you, and all the people we know. And so I had to get out there. You have to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And then Earl, you put yourself out there by reaching out and being like, I'm aligned with this person, right? Because so many other people would be scared to do that. They're like, oh, what if I don't hear a response, or what if this? But you did that, and then we had a call, and we instantly clicked, and now we're for a roundtable. We're seeing each other, and it's awesome.
But that's
And
part of the intentionality, though,
exactly,
right? Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's so powerful. That's so synchronicity, and also being open, right, to the universe, its gifts, and being open and bringing in that intention. So I just wanted to like overemphasize that because I think about that moment all the time, and I'm like, I'm so glad I got on that podcast. I'm so glad that Earl reached out to me.
I remember with the first time you guys had a call, and Esther coming off of that call, and you can imagine that it's not often that Esther is sort of at a loss for words, right? So Esther kind of just sat there, and she was just looking out into space for a moment, and I was like, oh crap! I was like, baby, what's wrong? And she's like, I just had the most amazing conversation, right? And it was like because it's that feeling when you hear your values and what you believe in reflected back to you,
Exactly.
and you realize that it's a community that feels like family. Right,
Exactly.
and I know that she felt that way from the beginning, right?
Yeah, and then I'm like, Paul, you have to talk to Earl.
that too. But that's how I felt when you were being interviewed. It was as if you were speaking to me. It didn't feel like a podcast. It was, you were speaking to a way that was so resonant with where I was at in my life, and also the values that we share. And I want to bring up this point, which is, and I love your explanation for this as well, Paul, which is community is when we are able to tap into the oneness. So what is the oneness at the moment? So, and how can we break that down? So if we look at what's happening today, there's a lot of identity politics that's happening. We're kind of making it around ethnic origin and skin color and various different things. And what I love about what you guys shared is your oneness is really about shared values. Mm-hmm. And values is one of so rather than identity, so rather than saying, oh, it's all men, or it's all, black people or brown people or white people or whatever people or whatever it is, values are one of the things that can actually transcend a lot of the noise. So when we become intentional, we are very clear about what is the oneness that's bringing us together. We're not, it's not always absolutely laser focused, but it's kind of like we got a sense of we're moving in a direction. We're trying to make the world a better place. We're trying to make that for society. We're trying to even up so, the have-nots have more, and this is a very different approach. And that's why community becomes important, because we are aligned with our why, which is our inspiration, and we manifest that in our aspirations, which is how we want to see that happening in the real world. And if it's really important in an inspirational way, that's why we will get on the podcast. This is why I will reach out to you, because it is important for us to show up in the world, connect our community, and create that momentum that is going to have the impact. And the important thing is that we're not doing it as individuals. Community means that the oneness is many people acting as one. And one last thing I want to add to that is the phrase, I kind of looked at it when you asked me the question, I was kind of like, well, what does community mean? And what brings it to life? And the phrase that I like is community is when you have a group of people and people stop saying, what can you do for me? And more about how can I contribute to this? How can I join in and keep that momentum going? And I think once we start to understand that, it's not like a membership where it's like, hey, I'm paying some money and I'm part of this thing, and you need to give me something. It's kind of like, it's not what you can do for me. It's like, how can I contribute? And that's why I reached out to you. I was kind of like, well, how can I contribute to the force of good that you are in the world?
Exactly. I love that so much, right? That's so beautiful. And I feel the same way, right? Like when Earl was like, like you have your thing, I'm like, how can I add value to that too, right? And because it's about like you start to believe in because when you have shared values, right, that you start to the vision that the other person wants to create, that aspiration you're talking about, you want to be part of it, right? You want to help them make that a reality because it's also in alignment with the world that you want to see. Yeah.
We talked a little bit about that also when we talked to Precious before.
Yeah.
Right. The idea of the person who has the service mindset. Right. I'm here not just for myself. I'm here to contribute and uplift to what's happening in this space.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think also, Earl, when you were talking this right now, it brought me back all these childhood memories in a flash, like as you were speaking right now, because as a kid, I found it really hard to build community, right? Like and we've had this talk, and maybe we could talk about it here. There's a difference between your round table, your friends, acquaintances, and and we need to differentiate that, right? Because when people say they're building community, what are you building, right? Are you trying to build a round table, which is like your, I don't know if we've defined that yet, but it's like the 11 people that are your advisors, right? Your board of advisors in your life, that they're the front row of your auditorium of life. If people were sitting in an auditorium and had all these seats, they're in the front row. Are you looking for that? Or are you looking to fill the other rows, right? With a lot of different friends and acquaintances, maybe like you share a couple of values together and you keep in touch here and there, or you're just trying to look for a place that you can connect and find joy, right? There are different intentions. Like I remember when I started Be Act Change, I wasn't necessarily looking for my round table, but I was definitely looking for the rest of the audience. And I found that in Australia. And then when I found that in Australia, I ended up finding someone, right? And I remember you met her too, Nat, and that became part of my roundtable. But I filled in the other part of the audience, but I had that intention. And so I think that's important to differentiate because they're different. And I remember as a kid, I had a hard time finding that first row. But it's not until an adult that I realized that the reason why that's hard is because, and I reflected on what you were saying, and I reflected because yesterday I posted my obituary, when I'm like 90. It's because even that, when I was thinking about funeral, I'm like, my funeral can't be in one place. It has to be posted virtual because my people are not in one place. It's a values movement that's worldwide. Heart-led people are all over the world. So it can't be one place. So as a kid, I had such a hard time when people were like, you need to live in one place and your neighbors are going to be your community. And I'm like, inside, I was like, that doesn't work for what I don't know. I know I can't be it. And then yesterday I felt comfortable writing, I'm having a virtual funeral. And all my people are all around the world, different time zones, and they're joining in because my people are everywhere. So anyways, What do you think, Earl? I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, just before, because I've got my thoughts prepared. Paul, is there anything you want to add to that before I jump in?
True. Yes.
No. I'd much rather hear you.
Okay. I think, you've touched upon this intentionality piece because what happens is a lot of people feel as a group of people together that we are a community, and a group doesn't necessarily mean that you're community. All that means is really, and because what tends to happen is we don't group ourselves sometimes. We're grouped by proximity. We're grouped by politics. We're grouped by all sorts of different things that people think, oh, you're one group. And actually, we're not one group at all. So I wouldn't call that, in a sense, a group of people community, right? And that's why, you may have had that experience of finding it difficult to find or grow a community, and your daughter asking the same question, right? So this is a challenge that can happen. So the first thing really becomes is, so the question is, the difficulty becomes the how. We think it's the how, but actually it's the why we're building the community and what do we want to see happen. We'll figure out the how, because if you're figuring out the how, because if you think about what happened with me and you, that wasn't scripted. I didn't think, oh, I'm going to go and listen to 50 podcasts and I'm going to reach out to all those podcast hosts or anything like that. That wasn't a plan. It wasn't a strategy. What happened was synchronicity. I listened to the podcast. I was like, wow, you spoke to me like no other guest on that podcast, because I don't think you're the only person I reached out to after that podcast. The other people I knew before, so I kind of directed them to Anya. So that was a mechanism of figuring out the how, but I knew the why, because the why was resonant. That was my inspiration. And the what is, you described the what in terms of the work that you're doing. And I'm like, yeah, I want to be a part of that. I want to contribute to that. I want to support Esther. Right. So, and I think that's a key thing, because that is true of what you said about me and also Paul, which is, it's not a case of, I want to do something. That's sometimes in communities, I want to support the person that's already doing something. So it's not about, oh, I've got to go and do something different or alongside you. It's just, how do I support you? And that's the oneness that you speak about as well, because in that case, ego tends to die away a little bit more in community, because it's the oneness of, somebody needs to do that job. Who's going to do it? I can see that it needs to be done. Can I do it? Do I have the skills and capabilities? I'll just go and do it. You know, and that's what I love about you two, is that you're so proactive in the work that you do. And, you know, we've seen that in 2025, where you've helped people all over the world in various different regions, including travel, which is why we got to meet in the UK, that you invested in, you know, you invested in yourself and you went out and helped all these people. And the irony of that was, you know, and I'm plugging you here, which is, you know, myself and Paul ended up having a beer and a good chat, because you were coaching people for, you know, pretty much 18 hours a day, right?
That's true. So, I couldn't even stay for the whole beer.
You couldn't stay for the whole beer. So I think, but that's important, because it speaks to your why and what it is that you're doing. And you figured out the how. You didn't know that you was going to be doing that at the beginning of the year.
I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second, because it reminds me of a story, actually. Because I don't think people know that we didn't even know if we were going to get paid. We literally, I took out, like, because it was like, you know, we got cut in January, right? And we wanted to go help people around the world. I was like, because I'm going to serve the world. And I was like, hopefully I'll get paid, right? But you know, we didn't know if we could trust contracts anymore, because I had just had all mine canceled. But then Paul and I said, if we don't get paid, we did a great service to the world. And I think I wanted to interrupt you there, because I think you were talking about, it was more, right? It was like that you're talking about that why. We were like, we're going to lead with that why and that service, hope to get, you know, money exchange. But if we don't, it's fine, because it's the right reasons and for the right people, right? And I don't think we ever shared that. That we were like, not even sure. There was some countries we got to, we didn't even have a contract yet until like the morning of, right? But that's the type of purpose why that it takes sometimes. Risky, but it worked.
And if the why is strong enough, you will figure out the how. And
exactly,
when the how happens, and when you act from a place of integrity and of service, as you both mentioned, what then tends to happen is you find your people, you find the tribe, you find the community. Yeah. And that's why you also need to be visible. And I think that's such an important point, that whilst ego doesn't tend to have a strong place, I would say more of a healthy ego, which is getting out there, being visible, but because you know the why of being visible, it's like, it's not all about me. It's like, yeah, this work needs to be done, and I'm trying to build that momentum intentionally to make it happen. And you just find your people, and it's not the size. And again, I think one of the things people get hung up about is the size of the community. it's the size
Yes.
doesn't matter. It's the impact that you have. And you know, you can have a very small community that can have a very, very powerful impact, as we've seen in
Yeah.
the global minority in various different ways. I'm talking about of not just nationality or ethnicity, but also wealth, financial wealth, how they can impact other people. And it's like, well, actually, if you get a few good, positive communities, that can have a massive impact for good.
Yeah. Do you wanna add anything, Paul?
So I have a question then. So I'm thinking about our listeners and the folks who are on the other end of this conversation, and I think that this whole conversation feels very organic to us, the three of us, because this is something that we do, right? We spend a lot of time figuring out our why and taking action for the how and all of that. My question is, what do you say to someone who is sort of still getting started on that path? Like you kind of want to give them like a guidebook. Like, what's the path that you would suggest for them?
Because it's easier to
This guidebook. Actually, I've got 2 copies, so if somebody wants the guide,
for people who are hearing, Earl put up the workbook Creating Your Limitless Life. I love that, Earl. It's true. It does tell you your why.
It does. And I laugh. It was tongue in cheek, and it's true, because you know, unless you can get down to your core, because okay, let me explain it this way. We're not given our names, as in we don't give ourselves a name. Somebody names us. Somebody gives us our language. Somebody gives us our religion. Somebody gives us a nationality. So there are so many things at an identity level that we haven't claimed for ourselves. And that can be, if you want to look at it, that can be actually be disempowering. So the first thing that we can actively claim for ourselves is our values. Be aware of those values and claim those values. Because the problem when it's at an identity level, we don't know it because we don't know any better. So I will call myself black because somebody's labeled me black. And society, so I've got the whole of society and my family and everybody saying I'm black. So guess what? I'm black, right? And I'm a man, and I'm a this, and I'm a that, and whatever it is. I'm Christian, or I'm Muslim, or you know, whatever it might be. I'm English speaking. So none of these things, all of these things are chosen for me. They're not my choice. The first thing that we really get to impact in that way is by choosing our values. And that's why it's got to be the first point of call. And that's why, you know, I laugh about, you know, and I showed the book, but actually that is truly the first place that you start.
Yeah. I love that so
love that.
much.
Wow.
Yeah. It's true, you know, and I love that you get to choose it. I mean, you're absolutely right. You know, I think that's part of the freedom and reclaiming your life too. When you get to like live your values and be authentically and unapologetic about it, you know, because I remember thinking that my value, well, and Paul, you could speak of this too, like, you know, because we have overlapping values, right? But there's a couple that are a little different. Like, you know, meaningful work is one of mine. And I remember thinking, why is it that I go 100% in, you know, and other people don't? Like, you start to think it's a weakness. You're like, something's wrong with me, you know? And for Paul, I don't want to speak for you, but your growth, I remember people...
I mean, it goes both ways, right? So
Yeah.
like for you, the meaningful work it's that I need to be in a place
I need
where,
to live, I need to work with purpose. Yeah.
with purpose, where what I'm doing makes a difference. But there's the shadow side of it,
Yeah.
if and when you get to the point where you realize that the organization or the cause to which you are giving all of this time and love and energy is in fact not
Yeah.
really aligned with your values, that disappointment is massive and
Yeah.
heavy, right? And you certainly experience that. I mean, yeah, my number one is growth. And so I love to,
You've
for
had
me,
so many careers.
For me, life is the journey, right?
Yeah.
It's always the what's next and what am I going to learn and how can I master this
Yeah.
and all of that. And the backlash from that has been largely from my family,
Yeah.
who at this ripe old age with gray on my face and all of the things that I have done, they still want to know, when am I going to grow up?
Yeah.
When am I going to settle down? And, you know,
And that's tough.
It's, you know, and
So, but at the same time, when you meet someone, right?
I hope I never do.
But the
I hope you never do.
yeah, I know, but never do either. But what's awesome, like we were saying with the values, is that when you meet someone with aligned values, you feel seen for the first time, And that feeling of being seen and understood, I mean, that's my round table. I think, like, if we were to define it, right? Because I think, like we were saying, like, we all speak the same language. People are like, I don't know if I have a round table. Your round table are the people who are like, they see me. And I know that it's such a simple phrase, but when you feel seen and understood, and when you're not understood. And when you're around people that see you for you and understand it, and you don't have to like explain anything because they understand you, like for me, like taking this month off, my round table, like people who knew me were like, Esther, you performed a miracle this year. Take the month off, right? And I'm like, thank you. Like my round table, everyone else in my round table was like, what are you doing? What are you like? Are you crazy? But my round table was like, they see you, they know you, and they're like, you need that, right? And I want to leave listeners to that. It requires this proactiveness. Like I think that's my message and takeaway for this as we continue our conversation. Is Earl, you were proactive. I was proactive. We're proactive, and you have to be proactive to it because it's not. You shouldn't go by what society says where your community is, right? Like mine was never at school. Mine was not at work. I used to suffer so much in the workforce because I wanted my team so bad to be my community and my round table. They were my team. A lot of them became friends. We had a great thing, but they were in my round table. I was their boss. And I was trying to mold it in places where society tells you to. And we see that with our daughter. And it's having that conversation. It's all about where the people with your values are. And sometimes there's not going to be them all accumulated in one space. And you also, if it doesn't exist, you have to create that community. Sometimes it doesn't exist yet.
Sometimes it doesn't. So first of all, a couple of things. I need to say this, that I'm so glad that I did the inner work before me and Paul sat down and had that beer. Because had I not done the inner work, I would have felt so insecure. Martial arts master, speaks 9 languages, had so many careers. I was like, I've had my one career, I speak one language, so Paul, you were such an inspiration. I'm not even going to say you're aspirational because I'm not even trying to get there, not at my ripe age, but the energy that you bring, and I love the fact that that growth energy is so important. And it's important because I'm going to link it back to something, which is the way that I look at this. So we talk about North Stars, right? One of the things that people talk about now is your North Star. But I say there's a North Star and there's a North Pole. And the distinction I make here is the North Star is something that is visible. So this is your aspiration. So I talk about inspiration, aspiration. It's visible. It's something that you are moving towards that you can see. You can see it. The North Pole, you can't necessarily see it, but you can feel its pull. But that's what the compass and the magnet, it's magnetized, right? So sometimes some people can see it and they can follow their star, and it's like it's very clear, it's shiny, it's that object over there, and I'll keep following that till the end of my days, With the North Pole, you can't necessarily see it, but you feel the pull.
Yeah.
And that's really important because for some people, they can't see it, but they can feel the pull. Yeah. And so you've got to trust that pull until you can see your North Star. And for some people, they can see the North Star, but sometimes life gets in the way, the clouds come up and whatever it is. And when you can't see the North Star, then you tap back into the pull of the North Pole, right? Okay. So it's that yin yang approach to this. As I said, that there isn't kind of one way, and it's about navigating both. And this is why the self-awareness is so important. And that's really important as well, because a little bit more context around the round table. So the round table is around the mythology and the archetypes of King Arthur. And King Arthur, if you think about this, and this is such a great metaphor, who brings together this wisdom, the knights of the round table, and they all have different attributes. They all got different qualities. And they don't necessarily even like each other in some instances, right? It's not to say that they're all friends around the table, but everybody knows that they serve a purpose around that table. And it is their shared values which will allow them to come together and transcend. This is what I'm saying about having a healthy ego, what might be an egotistical thing, and even challenge each other. But we know we're going to do it respectfully because there is something bigger than us that we're serving. And that's why we're at the table.
Yeah.
So that analogy, that metaphor is so powerful about who do I want at my table? What purpose do they serve around my table? Because the people that really know you, Esther, after you pulled, you and Paul did your miraculous stuff, actually, had you gone to do something, you'd have had some people around that table saying, what are you doing? Stand down. Still take your time off, right? You're like, oh, I'm ready to go. It's like, no. Still give yourself the month, right? So being at the round table isn't necessarily about, we've got to get on and be nice to each other. It's like, we've got to be respectful for each other, but we've also got to challenge ourselves to be the best version of ourselves. The hard truths. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A couple things come to mind as you're talking, Earl. One of them, it's so fascinating for me to hear, as Esther said, I'm a big word nerd, right? It's so fascinating to hear so much of what the concepts that we talk about and we, work with people on expressed in a different way. Like this whole North Star, North Pole thing, I think is beautifully elegant, right? But we spend a lot of time talking to people about that inner voice, your intuition, and listening to it and following it. And your legacy. It seems so easy when we say it, but it's absolutely one of the hardest things to do, right? Because we have all of those expectations of society and family and our perceived community and all of that on top of us, telling us what our North Star is and should be, and frankly, oftentimes encouraging us to ignore our North Pole. Right. So that I think that is, it's such a powerful thing to just even to speak that, right? For, we understand that oftentimes we end up being role models in different situations, and just being able to say, I had this gut feeling, this intuition, and I followed it. Right? That the fact that you acted on it is something tremendous.
And
right?
It doesn't matter where you are in the world. That's the thing too. I grew up being like, people who follow their North Pole or their intuition is because they have privilege and their first world. And, you're thinking about that now because you immigrated to the US and now you can think about that. But I always knew in my gut that was wrong. I'm like, that can't be. And now that I think part of my quest of traveling around the world was to be like, you're wrong. It's like, actually, no, there's people all over the world that have a North Pole, and it doesn't matter what profession they're in. They could be CEOs, to fishermen, to anything, right? Another thing that you say all the time, too, very similar to Earl, Paul, is inspiration and aspiration. You should talk about how, I don't know if you knew this, Earl, the word aspiration.
Yeah. So, for example, aspiration, we talk a lot to Latino communities, right, and Spanish speakers. And the closest word in Spanish for aspiration is the word for vacuum cleaner, aspiradora, right? Because it is sucking in, right? And basically, what you aspire to is what you have been inspired by, right? And so by definition, aspiration and inspiration is this sort of cyclical thing that in fact requires a community, right? What you aspire to has to have come from somebody else's inspiration, right? And that you carry each other in these positive circles as you continuously
so
inspire.
I think it's beautiful because
right?
both of you have used it in such a beautiful way that it kind of they both complement each other so beautifully.
But I have a question. Okay, so here's my question for you, Earl. I'm reminded, as you were speaking, of this book that I read as a graduate student called Exit, Voice, and Loyalty. so that in any situation, basically, you have the choice. You sort of enter a community, however it is that you want to define it. You have the choice of either exiting that community, being part of that community, and expressing your dissent sometimes, right? Sort of that constructive criticism, or loyalty, where you just sort of remain quiet and just go with the group, right? And I think about, for example, my family. I think about different sorts of communities that we and so many people that we've talked to have been associated with, that those communities in some way aren't working for them. This community is not valuing my North Pole. This community does not see my North Star at all, right? And so in that situation, or explicitly extract it from me, right? So in that situation, we see a lot of people who choose loyalty, who choose to stay quiet and say, for example, this is my family. This is the people that I was born into, and so I'm going to stay quiet. There are other people who, in that same situation, say, you know what, I'm out, and I'm going to leave. Or there are others who say, you know what, I love you guys, but we're doing something wrong. The people who actually choose voice and to say, you know, we need to do things differently because this isn't working. Right. So my question for you, and maybe this was a long-winded introduction to something that you might not have a lot of experience with, but I guess my question is, how do you work with people to navigate those situations? Because up to now we've spoken about the very positive side of community, right?
Well, I think we've talked about how to find and create the community you want to be a part of. Yeah. And you're transitioning the conversation that people already exist in certain communities. Right.
That in reality they should oftentimes transition from, right? So how do you
to make space?
How do you do that?
Okay, so thanks for answering. Before I answer the question, I just need to say this about the inspiration aspiration thing. And I think you appreciate this, Paul, because what you described there is breath work.
Yes.
Which is
when you were saying it, I was like thinking about the breath work.
Because you facilitate amazing. If here's a plug. If anyone wants to do some breath work, Paul facilitates an amazing breath work, and Esther, together. And it's no, you both are, like, literally, like, even now. But what it is that cycle. It's breathing out, it's breathing in, it's breathing. Because if you just do the breathe out piece, it doesn't work. And this is what so many people do. This is mainly the people that I work with, the people who want to give, the people that want to have an impact, and all they're doing is breathing out, and they're not breathing in. But equally, if you just do the breathing in thing, which then becomes like a vacuum cleaner, and it's just extraction, which is one of the big problems that we've got in the world. It's kind of like, what's in it for me? What can I take? What more can I get? That doesn't work. You have to breathe in and breathe out. You have to give and receive. And that's one of the core things about community, which is, you are receiving by being of service, because you're building something that's bigger than the sum of the parts. So I just really wanted to speak to that piece. In terms of your question, and it's a very important question, and I love the distinction that you make, but I start with this point, which is, because you're in a group, that group isn't necessarily a community. And that group could be your family. That could be your ethnicity. That could be your nationality. There could be so many things that you are lumped into a group. Because, as I said, quite often those groups, we don't choose those groups ourselves. We're born into those groups, and those groups are chosen for us. And the challenge is this, and this can be reflected across the world in so many different regions and places, about what we're seeing with wars, what we're seeing with extraction and whatnot, which is and I don't call it what you described there. I believe there is loyalty within communities, but I think there's also compliance and being complicit within communities. And that's different from loyalty. And being compliant and complicit is really about, I know you're doing something wrong. I know you're not acting in the best of the community, and I'm still not saying anything. I'm just towing the line. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges in and that's got me in a lot of trouble in workplaces and all sorts of different things. When I know, if I see, if you're doing something and I don't think what you're doing is of the highest standard of your integrity, and that's you as an individual, not my integrity, your integrity, I'll call you out.
Yeah.
And
I think all of our
you know,
listeners who are heart-led trailblazers, I think we're all in trouble in this.
yeah, right. So you know, so I think what community does is it gives you. So this comes back to the round table. If you know what you're doing and know what you're building, you're doing it intentionally. It gives you the space to either speak up, and again, I don't see that as dissent. I see it as constructive. That, you know, we call each other to account to how we can elevate ourselves to the next level. It distinguishes or extinguishes compliance. And equally, so I've been, one of the things that I've done in the past is I've been on boards of charities and you know, various different groups that I've been in, and I've exited when I feel I can no longer provide value, and there's possibly somebody else who can provide better value than me. So there's charities I've kind of said, you know, I love the charity, I love what it's doing, and I think somebody else can do a better job than what I'm doing right now. So, and that's what you would do for the love of community. You will sacrifice what is required, and that isn't compliance, that isn't being complicit, that isn't to staying because I'm keeping up the numbers, and you will be vocal because why wouldn't you want the best for the community and everybody in the community? So I hope that answers your question.
And you made me think about sometimes we get this community question is like, because we brought up value a lot, right? And some people are like, how do I know I'm adding value? Or what is of value? But when you're in community and you really are intentional about this, I can never say that word, Paul.
Reciprocity.
That you know, you know what the other people need, right? Like I think like this month, like for example, sometimes it's not related at all to what you studied, what you do, anything. Like this month, right? Like I love tarot, right? And I love spirituality, and I discovered my 12 card read, right? And I learned it. I mastered my sense, right? And now I'm like, everybody around to, I'm like, you want a 12 card read? I know, Earl, we're going to do it. Adding value, because I'm like, I know it helped me and it'll help you, right? I'm not a astrological expert or anything like that, but it's something that I know that my people that have the same value, that want to tap into their intuition, would enjoy. And I think like when you think about, sometimes people overthink the value thing too much and are like, well, I'm not an expert in this, or I'm not an expert in that. Like, what can I really provide? All of us have this special how-to. All of us bring in this. But if you're actually intentional and in listening to your people, right, it's gonna flow organically. And that's what we mean of value, is you being of service with your gifts. Because I think I remember my first year in the entrepreneurship, people kept on saying value, and I didn't know what it meant. I was like, does that mean I need to give like a workshop, And then I was like, oh, it's just being of service with what I can provide right now. And so I think if people here in the car, like, what do I provide? Just you, just you being you, and you like bringing your gifts and bringing it with that exchange, right? With that energy flow together.
Yeah.
And I also want to tie back, I want to give a plug for you, Earl, because you talk about the archetypes, and Earl is an expert in the archetypes. And I think the archetypes has this really cool structure that I learned from you. It tells you the journey of you. Like, I didn't realize I was using the term round table and that it was tied to my childhood dream, right? So my childhood dream, who I admired, was like my favorite Disney movie was Sword in the Stone with young Arthur and Merlin's the wizard. And I loved them both. And I didn't realize till we talked, until, we had this value session. And Earl he talks about he's only an expert. He's also an expert in archetypes, in words, and copyright, all sorts of things. He's helped me so much. And when you told me the journey of young, it's almost like a mirror. It was like young, if you've never seen the movie, it's the movie of young Arthur, and he's like this kid that's always giving and always people pleasing, and he's an orphan, and Or he has a
And
no.
always underestimated,
I don't know if he's
too.
an orphan, but he has he's always underestimated. And then he's the one that's been chosen to pull the sword, and he's like, "What am I going to do now?" And Merlin's like, Merlin showed him the world and the possibilities, and it's like, well, we'll figure it out. So Merlin's like a metaphor; it's his intuition, right? And for me, that's when I realized, oh, I'm both, right? And I think that's why the round table, because he was like, I don't know what to do next, and Merlin's like, we don't have to know, right? And then I didn't realize it's the story then of Arthur. Merlin's like, yeah, that's why you're going to get a round table of people. You don't need to have all the answers, right? That's the beauty of community too. We're taught that we have to do everything and be experts in everything. It's like, no, you can find a community of people that can help you. Like, okay, we just saw Earl a month ago, and you told me, I asked you something, and you gave me this whole sales perspective, and I was like, my God, yes, that's what we're going to do this year. I didn't need to go take a sales course. I needed just to tell Earl, talk to Earl, and Earl helped me think about things a different way. And that's what's the beauty. We all have our gifts and bring it together. So do you have a story like that, Earl, with, you want to share like your archetype or your this and
Yeah.
yeah, and I know Paul's like when he did the archetype thing, he has like ruler energy and destroyer energy. He has really good boundaries, and I don't. But you teaching us that helped me lean on Paul with the boundaries, right? Like this work is it's so key to even that work, to understanding what type of community you need and need to build.
Yeah. So thank you for that. And I would say more. I'm not an expert. More of a student of Joseph Campbell and Carol Pearson, who both I've kind of studied both of their approaches and other people, but those are the two primary ones that I focus on. And it's a useful thing to use as understanding your values, because there's a combination of things that are happening, and even if you look at a community, it's a constellation of things. It is identity, because identity is always there. There's a shared identity of the community, but then there is the values, and then there's the behaviors, and then there's the impact that you might want to have. And where's that happening? Is it happening at a social level, environmental level? There's all sorts of different ways that can show up. So understanding what your North Star is, what your North Pole is, where you are in your journey. And the heroic part is always about transcending the current part of your journey. So a lot of people think value, and this comes a question, right? What is my value within a group? And a lot of people think it's what they've been educated to do, trained to do, and also their unique gift. And that can be true sometimes, but sometimes it's being called, and this is the heroic journey, to transcend that current stage of where you're at. So actually now you're going back into, again, a beginner, the orphan, the optimist, the child, the innocent. So you're going into a new phase because something needs to be done and I don't know how to do it. And no one around me knows how to do it. So I've got to figure out how to do it. And when I say I, it's more of a we. It's like, how do we go and we shake this up? So even as a collective, now we're on a journey of being the innocent. And the innocent then takes you into the journey of being orphaned. And being orphaned really means that life is going to happen. And you're going to get the loss of innocence. Things that, people are going to do things that aren't appropriate, or something's going to happen, and you're going to be like, okay, I've lost innocence. And that's actually what you're doing. You're not losing your parents, so to speak, to be orphaned. You're losing innocence. Yeah. But every negative has a positive, because that's how you learn to look after yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Just like
values.
Burnout.
Values
have a so diamond and a shadow side. Yeah.
Exactly. So for me, part of my journey was, going into the corporate world and being very optimistic and saying, hey, this is amazing. I'm getting paid good money. I'm in a good job and I'm in a good company. People love me, respect me. And actually it didn't work out that way. I came up against racism. I came up against bullying. I came up against, people, not treating me fairly and rightly and equitably. And so one of the things that I started to do was double down, right? So I started to work harder, because guess what? If I want you to see the value in me, I've just got to work harder.
Yes.
And that doesn't work.
No, that's
So-
the high achiever tragedy, right? Like, and it's also our
exactly.
culture too. Our culture says, well, I can speak to the Latino culture. Always says like, well, just put your head down and work hard, and somebody will notice.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
your work will show for itself, and that's
Self.
the biggest fallacy we're told.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that becomes a problem. So then you have to find a way to overcome. And that's what happened for me. It was kind of like, well, actually, I had to move companies a few times to find the company that fitted for where I was at. And then that was a new level of growth. So again, that was the destroyer energy, or, just like, I'm going to cut that, strong boundaries. If you don't respect me, you don't have to like me. So one of my mantras became is, I don't care if you like me or not, but you will respect me, and I will do what I need to do to earn your respect. And if that's not good enough, then we can't work together. And that was one of the boundaries that I started to actually embody. And so then I found the right type of place where I got respected, did the work, became very successful. But that was then unfulfilling. So then I needed to be the wanderer. So I had to go out in the world and find out what else is in the world.
Yeah.
And then I did that. And then I had to go into the inner world, and I had to learn a little bit more about spirituality and, what really speaks to my essential self. So those are stories that happen. And I just want to speak to this at this point as well, which is, it's not always about building a community. Sometimes it's about just finding a community where you belong. And sometimes it is building one, which you do need to be proactive if you're building one. And even if you want to find one, you also need to be proactive. And sometimes you're gonna get orphaned. You're gonna find out that I don't belong there, and then you'll just find the right community as long as you keep continuing. And that's why the journey is so important, because every step of the journey, you grow, you evolve, and you learn something new, and you are adding value by doing that.
I love what you said, because that is exactly what I told my daughter like 2 nights ago. I sat with her, we were having this conversation, and I told her to be patient, because like you said, it's not an overnight thing. And I said, it's better to wait and find the right fit than to force it, because I explained to her that it's not, I think it took me a decade to build my round table. And because I wanted an intentional round table. I have exactly now the round table that I dreamed of my whole life, But it took 10 years to build, because I thought at first it was going to be at work, and then I thought it would be with my clients, and that it was this. So, you have to, like you said, go through the journeys and experiment. And Earl, you helped me on my journey last year with boundaries, and now I know who it is. But I'm like, she witnesses it, right? She knows. And I'm like, but you've met all of them. Aren't they amazing? And she's like, it's amazing. Because at first she's like, well, you don't understand, because look at your round table, And I'm like, I do understand, because it took me 10 years. And I said, but at the same time, like, I had to know what I was looking for, and what did the feeling I wanted to feel, right? And I was like, what do you want to feel when you're there? What do you want them to be like? And that for me was the biggest mover, I think, in the creating Be Act Change. And the movement was the vision of the round table I would have, because I knew this is what I wanted. So to have that, I had to go into this, and I had to do this. And then it came to fruition, but it took a journey, and it took, like you said, a journey to knowing who I was too, and what I wanted, and permission to want that, right? There's so much inner work too, because you have to also give yourself permission that it's okay to want it, that it's okay to have it, and that it's okay to exit the other ones. Like, all that takes work, and sometimes it's not automatic, right?
I took something completely different from what Earl was talking
But I
about.
just wanted to put a plug on that, because I definitely did the whole Earl archetype journey, and I really want to encourage people to do that, because it gives you so much insight into who you are and the journey you're on and what you need.
No, as I was listening, I was really struck by this idea, this understanding of how dynamic things are. there's who you are and what you are today, but that a big piece of it is you evolving to the next. We're like Pokemon. You have to evolve to the next Pokemon,
Yeah.
right? But I thought about, for example, some of the work we've done, like with the Enneagram, right? This
Yeah, I
idea
love Enneagram too.
of this is sort of what your main thing, but that as you progress, you evolve into different paths and different steps, right?
That's true.
And so for me, as the person who's all about growth, I was like, yes, that feels really good.
But it's similar. They
but-
complement, right? Like the achiever grows into the number 6. I forgot what 6 meant, but like it was like the lighthouse. I know it's the lighthouse. The achiever then goes into a place of service, goes from individual achievement to service-based ambition to then this whole spiritual journey of the collective. And that's the Enneagram, right? But it's very similar to the archetypes, but I love that. But then you can also fall back. Like at
Sure.
least in mine, like if you're achiever, you can fall back to being
I mean, sometimes life knocks you down a little bit,
life
right?
knocks
So-
you down, and you become again the one that just wants to keep things in peace and not rock the boat. And then you could fall further down to then questioning your whole existence, right?
But that's part of the point,
Yeah.
right? Because I mean, I'm thinking about our listeners, right? Like I know that a lot of people have the tendency when they think about themselves or when they speak about themselves, it's like this is just who I am,
That's
right?
true.
That
Yeah.
there's a staticness to them, that this is how you were born and created, and that there's no way for you to go beyond or past this.
Absolutely.
And the truth is that it's all a journey, right? And it's you seeking with intentionality that growth and that next step.
And then your purpose grows, right? Like how you solve problems is who you are, but your legacy is always changing, and how you bring that to the world always changes. I love that. And in Enneagram, I want to give a plug for Kelly Redfield. She's James Redfield's daughter, but she's amazing at it. So putting a plug for her in that. But that's so
Absolutely.
cool. I love the archetype stuff, and I think that's a really nice. It helped me think about like the round table and like community and all that and the childhood dream. Earl? What was your childhood dream? What are you Disney? What's your Disney?
I think I just wanted to be a cowboy. I think I kind of because it was that thing you see on TV, but really what I think spoke to me was adventure. I kind of I wanted to be an adventurer, a pioneer of sorts. So not necessarily to be a trailblazer in the sense of being the first and
Right.
blazing the trail. I wanted to go and explore. Whether somebody else followed me or not, I didn't really care. But
Yeah.
I like to do the off the beaten track, see something different. I look for wonder and awe and things that amaze me. That was really what
I
spoke to
love
me.
that.
So really being a wanderer, an adventurer.
I love that. I mean, that's why we have that in the workbook, right? Because it tells you the characteristics of who you are. I love that so much.
Yeah.
So
So
Earl,
yes,
as I know we could talk for hours.
yes.
So I want to leave you with the last question. And we
Right.
always end the episode this way. Do you want to coach or be coached?
Ooh. Both sound inviting to me. I think let me be coached. Because then I've got no idea what's coming.
Okay, well you get to ask your question.
If
And I'm gonna let Paul answer first.
okay. If I'm starting in 2026 and I don't know where to start, how would you help and guide me or coach me to know where to start for 2026?
Well, you
Wow.
go first.
I would say a couple of things. Like one, for me personally, and I'm answering this as though I didn't know you. So so let's start
Well,
start
I don't know.
that way.
Do it for Earl.
I mean, the thing is, I suspect Earl already does a lot of these things. So
And to be fair, I'm thinking about the audience.
Okay,
So as well.
Yeah. So as you were speaking earlier, you talked about how, as you know, you went through your job progression, and you got to the point where you still didn't feel, even though successful, still didn't feel quite satisfied. And then you talked about your intuition and spirituality and that sort of thing, and how that came after that. I think a big part of what I try to get people to do is to bring that step much sooner into their lives. So I think for me, you mentioned that I'm a breathwork facilitator, and that's one of the reasons why we do that, right? Is because we want to get people in touch with that intuition and that inner voice, and shedding the layers of armor that we often carry around with us constantly. So that they can actually hear that inner voice. So for me, I think the first thing that I would recommend is to find some way to access what your intuition is telling you now, whether it's breath work, whether it's yoga or journaling or some combination of those things. For me personally, I've found that breath work is by far the most effective thing. But we've been doing a bunch of other meditative kind of exercises lately that I think for some people must be really, really, really effective. Whatever it is that you can do to sort of strip away some of that armor and let that inner voice come out. Second thing is what we've talked about already. With that openness of mind and spirit is to then ask yourself, what are your values? Right. We've talked about that significantly through this conversation. But it's for us the absolute foundation to know what it is that you who you are at your core and who you choose to be, which is what I love how you gave that description earlier. And from there, our next step typically is then guiding the person to understand what it is, what we call your superpowers, right? What is it that you bring to any situation? And you alluded to it as well. That which you bring that is beyond your title, your education, your status. It's, what is the essence of you that you bring to any situation? And then having that as your foundation to really start on a visioning process moving forward.
And I think I would add to yours that the values is not just values, but not just the standalone values, but the connection, the order of the values matters. The values tell a story. And so it's understanding what's your story right now with the values. So I'm going to add
and as Earl called it, you're sort of a constellation, right?
Exactly.
So there's a lot of things and they're interconnected with each other.
And I would add, whether it's you or someone else or the listeners, because you know what, I found myself, when I start the coaching, I start with always a relatable story, right? And I found myself in that same place 2 months ago because we had this incredible 2025, but the world has changed. It's shifted. And I found myself having to open the workbook again because what are we like? I was like, what are we going to do in 2026, right? Like we talked about it in the beginning of this episode, right? We stepped up. We didn't know if we were going to get paid. And the community is what guaranteed our payment. I want to add that too. Because of that community, because that word I can't say, that energy flow, they secured our payment, right? So this is where like that flow happens. But now, I had to revisit November and be like, okay, so we recovered. Everything's great, right? Everything worked out. But now what? And now in this world, right, and there's so much anxiety and uncertainty. And so not just the values, but I had to look at, okay, I'm hitting this slump because if you're asking that question, it's because you've hit a crisis point, a slump. And I've been there. I hit that in November where I'm like, okay, now what, right? Like, what is my calling now? And not that I know my purpose and I know how I solve problems, right? But you can still have that question. And because it's your legacy and your legacy's moving. And if the world's moving, you have to shift with where the world and the energy's moving. And I had to sit there and sit with it. Well, one, I had to pause. So I would say if you're in that point, you can't continue hustling 3,000 miles per hour. And whether that's breathwork or something else, you have to take a pause. It's not going to come to you, that clarity, in hyperspeed. So that's when my roundtable knew I need a break. If you're feeling this, you need a break. You need even if it's just a day or a couple hours. Then I had to think, the values also tells you your motivation. Values and needs are related. And it's what you need. So depending, that values quiz, like we can give that to listeners. It tells you what do you need when you hit rock bottom for that motivation, whatever, to be able to start this work. Mine is self-actualization. So I actually need that visioning, right? So breath work helps me with visioning, values helps, all that stuff, right? For other people, it's love and belonging. So they need to be around community, and everyone's going to be different. You need to first go around your community and tell them, I've hit a slump. And let them tell you, I got you, right? Permission to take break, I got you. Love and belonging second for me, so that's why I need permission from my round table, right? But sometimes people need that permission first, right? So it depends on the order. Some people, it's safety, the motivator. They need to do the control circles and be like, okay, maybe I'm in that slump because the world was on fire and I feel like I can't control anything. So I'm like, because of that, I'm screaming that I don't know what's going to happen in 2026 and I can't even plan, I can't even think. So you have to do the control circle. What can you control? What you can't cannot control the crazy world right now. But I can control my own universe. Okay. And what is that universe? Maybe it's growth. Okay, so maybe I need to enroll myself in a class. I need to crochet. Like Paul took up crocheting. That helps clear his mind a little bit in addition to breath work. So one thing is understanding your motivation, right? It's a very layered question. But the next one is part of why I do the obituary as the first exercise is, our doorbell's ringing, but I'm going to continue talking. So is the obituary exercise. We're going to give it 1 second. Okay. So this obituary exercise, first thing is because, if you're in that slump, you have to remember how much you've already accomplished and done, right? Because sometimes when you're in that slump, you feel, I don't know where to begin, but it's not about beginning. It's about continuing in a new space. And the obituary allows you to reflect, to be like, look what I've already done. Look what I've already accomplished, the impact I've already made. You're not starting from zero. You are not beginning again. You are continuing in the new space that you want to. So, but then how do you know that new space? And that's when you rewrite your obituary. So rewriting the obituary, and why I posted it recently, it's because then it tells you where's that, like you said, that North Star and the North Pole, because it tells you what you wanted to see. So that pool, and it forces you to write something of that North Star and be specific, right? You may not have it all. Like you said, you don't have the how, but you have something. And since I was in your question, for me, that clarity came this month that I had off, because then when I rewrote it, I'm like, wow, okay, I want to continue inspiring through books. We talked about the workbook. I want to continue being this stuff. So you know what that means? I got to be visible. That's why I was like, okay, Paul and I were like, we got to be on this podcast. We got to meet more people. We need to get out there. I need to be on social media and for once in my life, not care at all, about how it hits. If one person watches it, I even hid all that stuff on my profiles. I don't see how many people, I don't see how many people follow, nothing, because that's not the intention. But it took me till now to be able, when I rewrote it, to be like, because it's about the message, and whether it hits one person or 10,000, it doesn't matter, right? But that's what the rewrite the obituary. So I think you got the audience, and you got a different. It's a build of things, right? It's not one. It's a whole series of things, and I want to add a plug for the archetypes thing, because different things are going to sit right as your first step, right? The archetypes allows you to understand who you've been and your journey. The Enneagram understands who you've been and your journey. The obituary helps you understand where you want to go. Breathwork helps connect you with your intuition. I mean, I think if anything, we can leave with the message is start the work and find what hits for you, right? It's not, and it's going to be and it may be the whole combination of things. So you saw, it was the whole combination of things. And of course, seeing my round table was a big one. So yeah. Do you want to add, Earl, since you're also answering it for I think, answer for the listeners too? You get to coach and be coached.
Well, I think the key thing, and thank you and Paul for sharing what you just shared. And I think the takeaway for me is pause, listen, reflect. So the pause needs to happen, and when we pause, we're able to slow down, recalibrate, realign, listen, reflect. and then take a decision on where we want to go from that place. Even, you know, the listening, actually, just going back, there was a question that you said, it's like, what do I want, right? It's kind of like, am I, you know, what's the question that arises? And the question is the fundamental call to the heroic journey. It's kind of that, you know, there is something more. You know, my mantra at the time was there's something more to life. And listening to that and then going on that journey. And I think, if anything, if we do that, we pause, we slow down, we can't be going at hyper speed. We listen, we reflect, and this is where the journaling or the obituary can be really important. And at some point, we're gonna get an answer. We're gonna get a response, and then we got to just trust and have faith and make a decision based on that.
Absolutely.
And you know, that's why I loved Even. It's kind of like, look, let's do something. Let's do the podcast. Let's turn the metrics off, so it's not about how many people we reach and whatever it is. And even sometimes, I think the main thing is, even when you feel like you're going around old ground and you're going around in circles, quite often it's a cycle, it's a spiral. You look like you're going, if you look at a spiral from the top down, it just looks like a circle. But if you look at it like a spring that's uncoiled, it's cycling up. And it seems to be just going round and round and round and revisiting, but actually, no, we're not. And I think that's the important thing about, we're always evolving, we're always growing, if we pause and we pay attention to it and we listen. So yeah, no, thank you. That's really useful.
I love that. It's like, well, I love that because it reminded me of quantum physics, right? It's like it's like all that, or a quantum leap. I like your whole analogy. I love that whole thing. And
thank you.
Yeah, I just love what you said. I love what you said. And so, yeah, I think that's beautiful for the listeners. And a lot of them are high achievers with hearts. And it is going to feel uncomfortable for 2 days to take a pause. I mean, I was uncomfortable for 2 days. I was like, what am I going to do? And then you realize, actually, there's a lot to do. We just named you like 100 inner work things. And it doesn't even have to be that long. I tell you, it took a month. And just in that month, and I can speak from personal experience, I'm now ready to go on fire. And I know the clarity. But imagine if you don't do that. You could be, we've seen people spin for years. So when you start questioning, should I take this break? Think about it. How long do you want to be spinning for? Like, you know, that's a cost. So I know you want to say there's a cost to being unproductive. There's a cost to spinning and having anxiety and feeling that weight. So liberate yourself, do this work. And Earl, why don't you tell listeners how to find you, how to get in touch with you, and anything you want to leave as parting words?
Yeah, I suppose the main thing is my website is I don't know if you say www anymore, but it's creativemuscle.co.uk. And that's where I've got my workshops, my retreats, because I run retreats as well, and workshops, and also where I do some of my one-to-one work. But I also work with organizations and groups, and that's something that we're kind of exploring and touching on in 2026. So that's an exciting prospect. I also write on Substack. I enjoy writing, and that's some of my reflections and insights, and you know, those are the main places to see. But I'm also on LinkedIn, so if you want to reach out on LinkedIn, I'm also there, and it's just Earl.Talbot, and I've got the yin yang sign next to my name.
Awesome. And so Earl's great at, you want to know about how to, like, purposeful sales and service, copyright retreats. He does silent retreats, he does retreats in Bangkok. You do so many amazing things, or archetype work, pitch coaching. So I'm giving all your plugs, because just one session with you, even if you only do one, it's life-changing.
Yeah, I think the main thing is,
worth to follow too, by the way.
Yeah, I think you know, I don't fall into one thing
because we're excited.
Sorry. Sorry, go on.
Please go ahead, Earl.
I was just saying, it's funny because people try to ask me what is it that I do, and the closest thing that I can say is a guide, because a bit like you in that way, Paul, I kind of show up with what people need. I kind of talk about being like Nanny McPhee, which is when you want me, you don't get me, but when you need me, I'll show up and I'll have whatever it is that you need. So yeah.
Yeah, no, 1,000%. What I said, even if you're like, I don't know what I need, just have this call and you're gonna get it. So you're gonna say something?
No, I was just gonna comment that you know how like all these different services give you your wrap up for the year. The person that I most followed on LinkedIn last year was Earl.
Yeah,
So-
your posts are amazing. So you want some inspiration? Follow Earl. That's amazing. So thanks for coming. Thanks
No.
for answering the audience's question, because Earl is like everyone that's his. If Earl tells me to meet someone, I know that person
Yes.
is aligned with me. So there couldn't have been someone like that. You are the person to answer that question, because you have done that, and you inspire me to keep doing that, to keep building that aligned community, purpose driven, purpose felt, and
No, it's
full of soul.
It's been our absolute privilege to
Yeah.
have this time to talk with you, and I am certain that our listeners will feel the same.
Yes, so follow Earl. He's amazing. Okay.
Thank you very
Awesome.
much.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to
Just what I needed.
Thank you for having me. And it's been an absolute pleasure.